In the heart of long-forgotten civilizations, ancient builders designed rooms not meant for display, but for transformation. Hidden deep within stone monuments across the deserts of Egypt and the temples of India, these enigmatic spaces, often called mirror chambers, served as tools for interacting with the unseen world. Their reflective surfaces weren't decorative. They were engineered to align human intent with universal intelligence. Entry into these chambers wasn't granted to everyone. Only the spiritually disciplined, masters of inner stillness and focused awareness, could engage with them. These individuals, known in some traditions as initiates, had trained their minds like precision instruments. When they stepped inside, they weren't merely observing their reflections, they were tuning into reality itself. What they envisioned would echo into the world beyond the mirror, sometimes with results so exact that others believed they witnessed magic. Yet this wasn't magic. It was consciousness, frequency, and a forgotten form of science, a method of resonating so purely with the structure of existence that thought became form. Modern minds might call this manifestation, but what these ancient adepts practiced was far more advanced. Their techniques followed natural laws, encoded not in books, but in temples, symbols, and sacred geometry. These chambers operated like amplifiers, syncing human energy with the architecture of the cosmos. Many old records depict deities or sages using mirrors. This wasn't metaphor. It was instruction. In temples like Konark and Luxor, reliefs show figures presenting mirrors to chosen students. Those images weren't artistic flourishes. They illustrated the mechanics of reality. The universe, they knew, acts as a feedback loop. It mirrors our convictions, our visions, our inner state. In both Vedic and Egyptian traditions, this understanding ran deep. The Upanishads speak of Brahma as the source of creation, projecting existence through divine thought. What some interpreted as Maya, illusion, was actually the shaping of raw potential through belief. The mirror in this context wasn't deception, it was the tool of the Creator. Today that knowledge sits buried under skepticism and superficial trends, but the principle never vanished. It awaits rediscovery, not as philosophy, but as functionality. This isn't wishful thinking dressed in spiritual language. It's the blueprint that once governed temples, rituals, and reality. You're not about to learn a life hack. You're about to remember how the cosmos actually works. What if the laws governing stars and atoms were identical to those shaping your thoughts? In ancient schools of wisdom, whether in Egypt or India, this wasn't speculation. It was the foundation. Everything seen was understood as a direct consequence of the unseen. This wasn't philosophy. It was mechanics. Sacred temples carved into stone carried more than religious symbols. They encoded a rule so elegant and absolute that it was etched into architecture and ritual alike. Inner reality crafts, outer events. The formula wasn't hidden. It was right there, in maxims passed through generations. What is inside manifests outside. What is above reflects below. Initiates didn't just recite these phrases, they used them. Egyptian teachings recounted stories of Osiris not for mythology, but as demonstrations of mental integration. To alter the outer world, one must first align internal elements, desires, assumptions, expectations. Only then would reality bend. Their temples taught this in ritual, story, and symbolism. In the East, Indian sages conveyed the same truth through sutras. Yat pinditat brahmande. What exists in the smallest unit also exists in the universe. Modern science echoes this. Micro mirrors macro. Think of belief like clay. It takes form when shaped by focused attention. Your nervous system, your subconscious, these are transmitters. They emit frequency based on your dominant thoughts, drawing equivalent outcomes. This isn't mysticism. This is wiring. Scientific research supports this echo. From the observer effect in quantum experiments to neural plasticity, proving that thinking rewires the brain. The ancient mind knew this, without microscopes or laboratories. Your assumptions dictate your experience. Want proof? Reflect on simple cause and effect. A person convinced they're unworthy will unconsciously sabotage opportunity. Someone who believes they are fortunate sees coincidence as alignment. These aren't accidents. They're mirror responses. Temples across cultures spoke to this in every stone and ceremony. The mirror wasn't symbolic, it was instructional. Treat your internal state as the blueprint and reality as the building. Change the design. The structure shifts. Try this for 7 days. Speak only thoughts you want, echoed. Declare, my perception shapes my world. I guide it with intention. It's not affirmation, it's calibration. Most people misunderstand delays. They think time is the enemy, when in fact it's the architect. Desire doesn't fail to appear. It unfolds on a schedule that's invisible to the impatient eye. Ancient spiritual scientists knew this well. Indian rishis and Egyptian priests both spoke of a space beyond the material world. A vast field where intentions imprint long before becoming visible. They gave it names: ether, akasha, sky. It was the canvas where all creation begins, and every thought left a mark like a footprint in soft earth. They treated intention like a seed. It must rest in darkness before pushing toward light. Rituals were built around this cycle. In Egyptian sanctuaries, high initiates would perform acts of skywriting, inscribing desires energetically into this etheric realm. These rites were not superstition. They were part of a calculated process. There were stages. First mental clarity, then emotional resonance, finally material expression. One without the others would collapse. Imagine a farmer sowing a field. He doesn't expect to harvest the next morning. He trusts the unseen growth beneath the surface. So too with creation. The delay between your intention and its outcome is not resistance, it's incubation. It's where refinement happens. In some ancient orders, students were tested with contradiction. They would declare a vision, only to face conditions that mocked it. This wasn't cruelty, it was preparation. Only those who could hold the inner picture intact amidst outer chaos were entrusted with deeper knowledge. It was called mental tapas in the Vedic tradition, disciplined vision. Holding steady when reality provides no confirmation. Like the sun shaping gold from wood, your focused awareness burns through doubt until truth emerges. So when your bank account doesn't change, or when support seems absent, remember, you're in the sacred in-between. It's not emptiness, it's emergence. Every result begins as vibration, lingers as pattern, and then becomes fact. Your work? Stay aligned through that invisible phase. Trust the cycle. Water the thought. Protect the vision. It's already underway. Every culture that built temples understood one thing. Form is not random. It carries meaning, precision, and resonance. Whether carved into stone in India or stacked into pyramids in Egypt, a common language underpinned it all. Geometry not as decoration but as activation. These weren't aesthetic choices. They were deliberate formulas embedded into sacred space to synchronize human awareness with universal patterns. Proportions, angles, and curves weren't ornamental. They were tools. Consider the Sri Yantra. Its intricate lines reflect more than art. They represent layered dimensions of intention and focus. The Egyptians knew this too. The flower of life, the structure of the Great Pyramid, each was a frequency map. They weren't building monuments. They were installing resonance systems. These shapes amplified the mirror effect. They aligned inner thought with external matter, syncing the seen with the unseen. 3 examples make this evident. The Taj Mahal wasn't just built to awe. Its dimensions reflect the golden ratio, 1:16:18, the same ratio encoded in your DNA. Your very biology speaks this number. The Sun Temple at Konark contains 12 wheel pairs and 7 horses, mirroring the zodiac and days of the week. Geometry becomes time. Time becomes energy. Look at your palm. Trace the flow of rivers. Nature repeats itself. Patterns echo from one level of reality to another. This self-repeating order, called fractal design, reveals a hidden intelligence. Nothing is disconnected. Every spiral, every arc, every angle is a gateway. For ancient seekers, accessing divine insight meant stepping into these patterns, physically and mentally. Many would spend decades in study just to glimpse the structure you now recognize instantly. Coincidence? Not likely. These patterns have found you again because your perception is tuning into them. Here's the essence. The same code that builds temples shapes thought. When your internal structure harmonizes with this geometry, intention flows effortlessly into form. So don't just see shapes. Feel them. Recognize them in emotion, routine, and focus. They're not just sacred. They're instructive. True change isn't about switching thoughts. It's about transforming their essence. Ancient alchemists weren't obsessed with gold. What they really sought was the transmutation of the mind. In sacred traditions, whether from Alexandria or the Indian Himalayas, purification wasn't metaphor. It was mandatory. No new creation could emerge until the old structure was dissolved. This wasn't philosophy. It was energy mechanics. They understood that the universe doesn't respond to words. It echoes the emotional charge behind them. So when someone proclaims, "I reject lack," but radiates fear, what returns is more scarcity, not from punishment, but precision. The mirror reflects what you carry, not your statements, but your state. That's why initiates began every journey with inner cleansing. Before planting new beliefs, they cleared the soil. Rituals like fire ceremonies, sacred ingestion, or sensory withdrawal weren't symbolic. They were neurological rewrites. In Egypt, the Book of the Dead shows a soul's heart being weighed, not judged weighed, against the feather of truth. If heavy with unresolved weight, the path forward vanished. This wasn't myth, it was instruction. Lighten your core to rise. Chemistry was their metaphor. Dissolution, separation, refinement. Each step of ancient alchemy mirrored inner evolution. To manifest wealth or peace, they didn't start with visualization. They began with release, sacred ash, disciplined silence, plant sacraments, all served one goal: to unhook identity from patterns that no longer served. Only then could clarity emerge. Even the ibis-headed Thoth, symbol of wisdom, was chosen because the bird filters nourishment from murk. Insight comes not from avoiding chaos, but extracting power from it. Once you grasp this, challenges shift. Loss becomes lesson. Absence reveals abundance. Pain transforms into precision. This is real alchemy, not denial, but redirection. Using awareness like fire, to burn away the unnecessary and distill what remains into truth. Master this, and the mirror will have no choice but to reflect a reality shaped by your clearest essence, not your noise, but your nucleus. Reality doesn't begin outside, it starts in the unseen. But most people live backwards. They react to circumstances, form beliefs around them, and unknowingly lock themselves into repeating patterns. Ancient wisdom turned this entire process on its head. In mystery schools, seekers were taught to ignore surface appearances. Instead, they were trained to select a new image internally and nurture only that, regardless of what showed up around them. This wasn't delusion, it was conscious authorship. Those untrained in this principle became stuck. They interpreted current conditions as truth. Their faith followed results, not direction, and so the mirror simply replayed the same scenes over and over, but the initiates reversed the lens. They chose their reflection first. Then, patiently and consistently, they held to that internal reality, even as the world showed its opposite. Not out of stubbornness, but conviction. They knew that the mirror doesn't respond instantly. It lags. It tests. Scriptures hinted at this reversal in parable and paradox. When Isis gathered Osiris's fragments, she didn't fixate on what was lost. She focused on completion. When seekers at Eleusis walked through constructed darkness, they weren't being punished. They were being prepared to see with inner clarity. Temples were built with deliberate illusions, false doors, misleading paths, to train vision beyond. Perception. It was all part of a sacred curriculum. Can you maintain your chosen vision while the physical world denies it? This is not avoidance, it's mastery. The mind is the gatekeeper. It can bind or liberate. Those who understood this didn't resist appearances, they transcended them. They knew that all manifestation starts in stillness, and all chaos bends to sustained awareness. Even modern psychology hints at this: confirmation bias, neuroplasticity, belief systems. But the ancients knew long before research validated it. Live deliberately is to defy reflex, to create, not copy. And once this cycle is reversed, once your inner stance becomes the cause and not the effect, your life becomes art, not accident. This is how Horus awakens. Not as a symbol, but as the embodiment of the Creator who remembers they are no longer at the mercy of the mirror. They are the mirror. You're not reflecting life anymore. You're shaping it with presence, vision, and truth.